As we're filming this on Thursday, supposedly the House is on the precipice of finally passing the Equality Act. But what is it? What will it accomplish? Why are so many Republicans fighting so hardcore against it? We're joined by a guest who's gonna help explain all of that and more to us. The executive director of the National Black Justice Coalition, David Johns, joins us now. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So for people who might not have been following this act, what is it about? How did it get started and what is it intended to accomplish?
Yeah, appreciate that. 3 responses to those questions. The Equality Act aims to provide clear and consistent protections to prevent people from being discriminated against, experiencing hate crimes or other forms of harassment as a result of sex. So the technical language is on the basis of sex. So acknowledging the discrimination that women face. Also with regard to sexual identity, gender orientation, or expression. So lots of support for members of the LGBTQIA+ community. The origins of the bill harken back to the Civil Rights Acts of the 60s, 64 in particular, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Acts. And then more recently, last year, the Supreme Court in the Bostic decision essentially affirmed that employers should not be discriminating against people based on actual or perceived sexual identity, gender orientation, or expression. And so in total, this bill is important because it is the sad reality now in too many states throughout the country that people don't have access to things that we might otherwise take for granted. Public accommodations, things like being able to ride in an Uber, walk into a department store and buy clothes for a job interview, access public housing, which is often required to complete a job application or otherwise see a doctor, or access other federal services. And so this is really about providing a level playing field for everyone to have access to the American dream.
Okay, everything that you've seen there seems very common sense, very reasonable. And yet yesterday, as of when we're filming this, there was an attempt to shut down the House of Representatives to stop this from being passed. I'm not an expert. It seems to me like just old school bigotry. Is there anything more to it than that?
No, I mean, right. The answer to most of the questions around like what's wrong in America, the answer is often white supremacy and or bigotry. And to be clear, white supremacy isn't always folks in hoods and tiki torches. It shows up in attempting to prevent everyone from having access to the same otherwise fundamental rights that those people are trying to stop other people from having access to. And so it is logical for people that understand that diversity has always made our country great, that we all benefit when people have the opportunity to be safe and fully participate in economic, civic, and social life, and that we provide, again, clear and consistent protections. It is sadly the reality that one's ability to be protected or access an Uber or be kicked out of an Uber because of one's feelings varies according to the state that you're in or that you're moving through. And so this is really about filling gaps so that we can all stand on equal footing.
So as you described in your opening remarks, this is going to provide a couple different forms of protection. It's going to protect a lot of different types of people, but in particular, for communities of color, what impact is this going to have?
Yeah, so it is important for me to remind people that not all LGBTQ people are white and not all Black people are cis and heterosexual. As long as there have been Black people, we've been incredibly diverse, and many Black LGBTQIA+ people live in the South. We are disproportionately concentrated with other Black folks, and we live in states where it is legal to deny us access to housing, employment, the things that I've talked about and we referenced over the course of this conversation. And so too often, especially in moments like February, which provides for federal recognition of Black History Month, we celebrate the work of Dr. King and the legacy of those who marched in the streets for us to have access to civil rights. That work is done. And what we know is that there's a lot of work yet to be done, and passing the Equality Act is a critical step in that direction. And at the risk of being persnickety, it's not just about benefiting Black people, which, to be clear, I care a lot. So I want to make sure that that happens. But poor white people who are often discriminated against too, in really pernicious ways, would benefit from the passage of the Equality Act. It accounts for the kind of attacks that people experience based on class and sometimes region as well. And so I want to be clear that this is about providing equal access to all Americans who deserve it.
Okay. You talked about more work that needs to be done. In the very short term, work needs to be done outside of the House. I mean, for this to pass, the Senate would have to pass it as well. Currently, what are your hopes or expectations for that process? Is it going to happen?
We shall see, right? What we know is that a passage in the Senate requires members of the Republican caucus to support the passage of the bill. Heretofore, they have not. And some of them have hidden behind religious exemptions or the attempt to hide bigotry and ignorance and other forms of discrimination behind a thin veil of religion. And to be clear, as the grandson of a Baptist preacher from Texas, I fundamentally believe that everyone should have the right to practice and worship in the way that they choose, and so doing should not infringe upon my ability to enjoy the rights that you otherwise take for granted as well. And so to be clear, there is a lot of work to be done in the Senate. The Senate is historically where the bill has stalled after being passed out of the House of Representatives and every Congress that has been introduced through recently. And my hope is that this moment in this larger movement might provide the support that we need in order for it to get to President Biden's desk.
So let's say hypothetically that it doesn't, that no Republicans sign on, and considering that every congressional Republican signed on to Congresswoman Green's attempt to shut down debate yesterday, I don't think it's impossible to assume that maybe there won't. If that is the case, if they're not able to get enough Republicans to cross over, there's this conversation that's been going on over the past month or so about the future of the filibuster. And some critics of the continued existence of the filibuster say that we can talk about traditions and debate and bipartisanship and blah, blah, blah. But historically, the filibuster, at least up until the last few years, the big instances of it being used were to stop civil rights legislation. We might experience the filibuster stopping more civil rights legislation. If no Republicans cross over and the filibuster stops the Equality Act from being passed, is this evidence that the filibuster needs to go and more pressure perhaps on the couple of Democrats that are opposed to getting rid of it?
It could be, and I think beyond that, it's an invitation for us to talk about what civics looks like at this current moment in the history of our country and what it means for there to be elected representatives who do not seem to respond to where it is that their constituents are. It should be lost on no one that more than 70% of Americans support legislation like the Equality Act, and it's likely a larger number at this moment in time. And if in fact, again, the United States senators representing those people are not operating in ways that are consistent with their wishes, then we need to have other conversations about ways to hold elected officials accountable.
Okay, so that was one hypothetical. Let's go in the opposite direction. Hypothetically, it passes, Joe Biden signs it, we celebrate. What's the next step look like? What would you want to be a follow-up to the finally the passage of the Equality Act happening?
Yeah, I think that there are at least three things that I would hope for. One is that there is also concerted support in implementing the Equality Act. It should be lost on no one that signing the bill into law will not immediately change the realities of people who need it and who are otherwise hiding behind it the very next day. And so we will continue to work to ensure that it's implemented in a way that allows people to show up and access public accommodations and other essential needs, right? So that's one. The second thing is that we continue to try and challenge and change the way that people think about minoritized and stigmatized communities, really shifting why we need this federal protection to prevent people from acting in ways that otherwise might come close to being a hate crime or a federal offense. And then the last thing is to acknowledge that, again, especially in the states where Black LGBTQ people are concentrated in the South, there are still other legal impediments that prevent us from having the kinds of conversations that we're having now, or the kind of work that would allow people to play evenly on a level playing field. I think in this moment, as an elementary school teacher about states that have no homo law, and then about things connected to LGBTQIA people, histories or ways of making meaning. And so there's still a lot of work to be done at the state level in many states in order to ensure that people can show up and be happy, healthy, and whole.
Okay, well, so no matter what happens today, the work isn't done, but hopefully at least that step will be passed. And David Johns, we appreciate you joining us and breaking it all down.
Thank you for the invitation.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.